Welcome to Nightmare Narrations. Today's story is titled, My Alcoholics Anonymous Meetings Are Getting Dark, written by buggyisgod on r/Creepypasta. Links to their original story is in the description, so go and show them some support. And if you want to submit your own stories to the channel, leave a link to it down in the comments or send it to me directly through my email in the description. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. This is an updated version of the story because I overlooked a very important part of it. Thanks to the author for pointing it out. Part 1. To make a long story short, I got into an accident while drunk and got sentenced to 50 hours of AA and community service, along with a hefty fine, with a suspended license dangling off the side of this shit Sunday. The minor details don't matter for the context of this story, so I won't speak on it. So yeah, it's a Friday night. Prime time for bar hopping, but here I am sitting in an artificially lit room with bad coffee and slightly worse company. Not to say that they were bad people, but why would we be compatible? I know, alcohol isn't all there is to life, and I agree with you, but this place is such a downer that I can't help but feel a little ill will. It's better than the county, so I can't really complain that much. It's my first night though. Maybe one or two of the folks will grow on me.
I'd like to start off this meeting by addressing the new person in our group. Would you like to introduce yourself?
He passed me this brightly colored stick with a feather tied to it with neon string.
The name is Mike, and I got court ordered to be here. I know I'm supposed to say I'm an alcoholic, but honestly, I just like drinking. I don't have a problem with it, I'm just here for my hours.
I passed the stick back to the group leader.
Well, thank you for sharing, Mike. I just want to remind you that if you want those hours signed off, you have to participate.
I nodded submissively.
All right, who wants to go first?
As the group traded experiences and the talking stick amongst each other, I saw this woman walk in. She looked pretty from a distance, but when she gets closer you can tell that she's not keeping up with herself. Dirty clothes, a faint smell. She sat next to me since that was the only free chair there was.
Let's take a moment to welcome the new face in the room. Brian, can you pass the talking stick to her?
Brian passed the talking stick to the mystery woman, but she slowly extended her arm like she's hesitant about the mere act of speaking a word. Though she did take it after a moment.
Hi everyone, my name is Evelyn, and I have a drinking problem.
Everyone murmured a hi Evelyn. I parroted the crowd after a short delay.
It all started about 2 weeks ago. Before that, I wouldn't even consider having a drink if it wasn't the weekend. I don't know what changed in me, but I started having these intense migraines that for some reason only alcohol could soothe. It spiraled from there, and here I am horribly sober and unsure if this is the right choice. The doctor said I'm fine and everything checks out, but I don't know.
The group leader chimed up after motioning for the talking stick.
Thank you for sharing, Evelyn, and no, you made the right decision. Life is hard, but alcohol only makes life that much harder.
What a load of crap.
I thought. The only thing that makes a bad day good is a cold beer.
We go by the 12-step program here, Evelyn. Are you familiar with it?
She shook her head.
Well, the first step to being alcohol-free is to admit that we are powerless in our addiction. And the second step is to acknowledge there is a power that can restore us to sanity.
Evelyn motioned for the talking stick, which the group leader handed it happily.
Give yourself over to a higher power?
They passed the stick again. Talking stick. More like a passing stick. Jesus, this 50 hours of this is going to drive me insane.
Yes, it doesn't have to be a specific religion. Any belief will work.
She closed her eyes in acknowledgement. He continued to say that they go by the buddy system. That meant that everyone has one person in this group that they can rely on so that they're not going through the 12 steps alone. And wouldn't you guess it, everyone already has a buddy, so it would only be natural that I became Evelyn's buddy. Meeting ended, I get my first 2 hours signed off. I turn to the door, and when I got out I see Evelyn smoking a cigarette. She looked kind of happy.
You got another one of those?
She handed me her pack, and I pull one out. I pull out a lighter and light it. I handed her pack back to her.
Thanks.
I grunt as I exhaled the smoke.
You're welcome.
We both stood there for a weird amount of time without talking. I break the silence.
So, want my number? Since we're buddies now, it'll just be easier.
Sure.
She handed me her phone and I put in my number.
It was my first night too.
I mumbled out. The cold air stung my lips as I breathed out to speak.
It was. Why are you here? By choice or?
I got court ordered too. 2 hours down, 48 to go.
That sounds rough. Don't worry, I'll make it easy for you.
She smiled cutely. I blushed slightly from her reply.
Don't worry about it. I can handle it.
With that, I put out the cigarette with my boot, and I said goodbye. Now let's fast forward to the next week, since nothing of real importance happened. She didn't call or text besides one text about half a week in. She just said that the 12-step program was helping her. I'm glad that this program actually does help people who want to quit get over their dependency with alcohol. I go into the next week with a renewed sense of vigor. I have someone counting on me to get them where they need to be. I walk in about 5 minutes early. The usual suspects are walking in. Some are getting what I'm assuming to be a cup of motor oil. I look around the room for Evelyn, and there I saw her, in the same seat she was in before. I walk up to sit down next to her.
How you doing?
She turned around, and I saw a different woman. Not physically, but there is this light in her eyes that wasn't there before.
Yeah, I'm great. My migraines even went away.
She said, beaming ear to ear.
Hey, that's great, Evelyn. I'm happy to hear that.
I can't wait for the third step.
She said it in a frantic tone. I thought at the time that she was just extremely motivated for self-improvement, but now I'm not so sure. The group sat down, and the group leader held out the talking stick. Its neon colors are an utter eyesore.
Who wants to start first?
Evelyn perked her hand up first with alarming speed that only I seem to have noticed.
I would love to start.
The group leader smiled and handed her the talking stick.
I'm so happy to see you doing so much better, Evelyn.
Evelyn grabbed the stick with both hands. Her knuckles turned white.
Hi, Evelyn here. I've been sober for 1 week, and I have to be honest, I've never felt better. I need to know what the third step is.
She passed the stick to the group leader as quickly as her hands would allow. The group leader took it without regard to those twitchy movements. Was he trying to be polite?
The third step is to give yourself over to that God, utterly and completely.
She closed her eyes and smiled hard. I thought this was insane. How is everyone just accepting this without even a grimace? The rest of the group goes on as normal. I barely got my hours in with how distracted I was from that whole thing. When it finished, I tried to just head to the bus stop, when Evelyn shows up from around the corner.
Hey, buddy, where you going?
I put on a fake smile even though I felt a growing unease with her presence.
I can drive you.
She said with that same grin. That light I once saw turned into a glint of madness with the way she was bending and moving like she was doing ballet moves while getting ready to play a round of football.
No, I'm fine. Thanks though.
I'm ashamed to admit it as a 6-foot man that weighs 215 pounds, but this petite woman is scaring me, and there was no way I was going to let that woman know where I live.
Why not? I just want to show my buddy how much I care about them.
No, I'm fine. I like the walk home. It's really nice out tonight.
The smile twitched for a moment as she held her eye contact.
Well, if you insist.
She snapped back to being animated again.
Get home safe, buddy.
This is where we're caught up with the story. The next meeting is in a couple of days, and Evelyn just messaged me that she's embraced the third step. I'm not sure if being free is worth it. Part 2. It's about 3 in the morning as I'm writing this. I can't sleep. I had this weird dream about a bloody forest with the silent human-shaped masses rising from the earth, and in the distance was a monochromatic mountain with something perched on top of it. I can't remember though. When I woke up I could have sworn I saw someone looking in my window, but it was too dark for me to really see. It couldn't have been Evelyn, right? I mean, I know I never gave her my address. Could it have been just a random voyeur? Well, regardless, today's meeting went pretty smoothly actually. Mostly because Evelyn was a no-show this time around. Though now that I think about it, the group leader told me I should check in with her. Obviously, I have reservations against that. But I have to be an active part of this program. So I pulled out my phone to send her a text, even though it's late. But as I opened up the messages to start typing, a hollow check in my phone went off. Her name illuminates the screen. How did she know I was going to message her? Was it a coincidence? Was she watching me? I answered the phone, and it was quiet on the other end. I mutter a hello, and she explodes immediately on the other end.
Hi, how are you, buddy?
She said with that same fanatical tone. I tell her I'm fine, and ask her how the 12 steps are treating her.
Oh, it's been great. I never knew that God could be this wonderful.
Oh?
I said inquisitively.
I asked the group leader about the 4th step earlier this week, and he said I needed to make a moral inventory of myself. And after some self-reflection, I think that I accomplished it.
That's awesome to hear, Evelyn. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, it is, but I need you, buddy. Can we meet up tomorrow?
I told her that I had community service tomorrow, but afterwards I could. She let out an intense okay. I hung up the phone. I'm not feeling too great about this. At least we'll be somewhere public. I'm going to stop writing tonight. It's almost 3:30 in the morning, and I got community service at 10. So I just got home after talking to Evelyn. We met at a park downtown next to the church where we have our meetings at. It was a relatively dry day for Washington, where I'm currently living. An early morning shower left the area dark with fresh rain. I found a dry bench underneath an old white oak tree that looks out to the main street.
Hey, buddy.
She seemed calmer. She opened her arms for a hug and I reciprocated. We sat down and I noticed some bandages wrapping her arms, though I didn't bother to ask.
Hi, Evelyn. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking.
Pulled out my pack of cigarettes and pulled one out. I offer her a cigarette, but she turns me down.
Oh, no, thank you. I don't smoke anymore.
I lit the cigarette and pulled on it for a moment before blowing a lungful of smoke out.
Wow, I wish I had that strength. Smoking is my one real vice.
Well, the only reason I was able to was through the power of God. Through all things are made possible through them.
On the surface, that response would seem normal to someone in AA. But if you were here with me, sitting in my spot with her looking at you with those intense green eyes, then you would understand.
So what did you want to talk about, Evelyn?
She took a deep breath and continued to calm down to a point of normalcy.
So I was told by the group leader that I had to admit all the wrongs I've ever done.
I leaned back on the bench to listen to what she had to say.
So a little about me. I'm a doctor for a local clinic. I'm mostly a family doctor.
It's surprising hearing Evelyn tell me about her life. I've had such a fear-tinted point of view with her that I forgot that she was a regular person before the troubles began.
Sounds like good work.
Yeah, at the time I thought it was.
I looked at her with suspicion. She continues to say,
But ever since I've been on this journey with God, I realized what I really was doing.
Oh, and what's that?
I wasn't loving them. I thought love was treating pain, but really it's all about causing pain.
Causing pain?
Yeah. When I used to express my love for my patients, I really was doing them harm by hiding pain from them.
My palms started to get sweaty as that same smile spread on her face.
But pain is the greatest expression of love. Pain makes you value life, the ultimate gift given to you. Those who experience pain recognize the true value of life.
But that can't always be the case. What if someone suffering would rather die?
I asked nervously, knowing how my grandma went out. I know what she is saying isn't always true. Sometimes living is just too much effort, and you would rather close shop early to see what's next.
Then they are beyond redemption.
The smile stayed on her face as she let those words crawl out from between her teeth. I wasn't sure what to say. What could I say to that?
But you haven't expressed your love to anyone though, right?
No people yet.
Should I call the cops? It's a question I'm still asking myself as I type this out. Surely they would have to do something about it. No people yet. Has she been practicing on animals? Would the cops even believe me?
I got to say, this is actually really messed up.
I blurted out without thought, though I don't regret saying it.
It's okay, buddy. I'm not gonna love anyone yet. I still have to learn how. After I learn, then you'll see the beauty of true, divine love.
She played with her bandages on her arms as she talked.
God is trying to teach me how to love, and soon I'll know how so I can spread this message to everyone.
I made some excuse to leave, and as I was walking away I heard her say something behind me, so I turned around and she was right behind me, so close in fact, that I could feel her hot breath. I jumped backwards. She doesn't advance.
Maybe I can come over and teach you how to love once I learn.
I'm not sure I love with roommates.
I lied through my teeth, but who would blame me? She donned a look of shock. Her eyes were filled with this violent flame. It honestly shook me to my core.
Why would you lie to me? I've seen you at home, silly. You should really keep your curtains closed. Anyone can just take a peek.
My blood ran cold, and then I knew it was her who was watching me.
I got to go.
I stammered out and began to walk away, constantly looking behind me to see her standing in place, holding that still pose, on her toes with her arms behind her back and her neck craned at a slightly right angle. That demented smile, barely covered by her red hair. I kept looking back every other second until she vanished completely, almost as if she was never there in the first place. I need to take a break. I'll write an update when something happens. This is stressing me out. Screw the A guidelines. I need a beer. I wonder why our group leader is guiding her and not noticing her rapid descent. Is he involved in this somehow? I should ask him for any insight into this situation. Part 3. So it's been a couple of days since I talked to the group leader. His name is Mark, by the way. I finally got around to ask him what his name was. Mark told me that he doesn't understand what I'm talking about when it comes to Evelyn. I found that to be utter bullshit.
She is just embracing the program. If you actually took AA seriously, then maybe you'll be a little more familiar with God.
First off, I'm no stranger to God. I grew up Roman Catholic and am in no way a non-believer. I might not be the best example of the religion, but I still believe, and nothing about Evelyn is screaming godly. He really didn't give me anything though. He seemed to be holding something back. I wish I could have grilled him harder for anything, but the residual crowd from the AA meeting was stopping me from diving in deeper.
Just be there for her and I'm sure your opinion will shift. She's really making full use of this program. It's something to aspire to.
Him saying that had me wondering, what is the purpose of Alcoholics Anonymous? No, not the skin-deep alcoholics program, but what is lying under the surface. Why would you need God to quit drinking? There are plenty of therapeutic methods to get over alcoholism that don't involve God. I don't really have any proof for my speculations, but regardless, it's something that has been itching at me for a while. Hell, I've questioned why this program really existed in the past. Though, at the time it wasn't worth much more thought than a simple different strokes for different folks. Well, regardless, Evelyn wasn't at the last meeting either. I'm almost too afraid to even broach the matter. She knows where I live, and at any point she can show up with whatever horrors she's been making in her spare time. Until then, I'll leave this here as it is for now. At this point, this is less of me looking for help by posting this, and just to document this spiral of insanity. I woke up this morning to a splayed animal on my porch. It looks like it was a fox. This was Evelyn. I know it was. I was expecting this sooner or later. But what really haunted me, and continues to still haunt me, is she left a letter written in red ink inside the cavity of the fox where its heart once was. The letter simply says,
I'm doing God's work, and soon you'll know the product of that work. Until then, buddy, I'll be seeing you.
I shuddered more at the note than the damn fox. Is she watching me now? There's no way. Since that encounter at the park, I've been really good at keeping my curtains closed. This red ink she used for the note, I'm pretty sure it's blood. Was it from the fox? I'm hoping it's the fox's, but at this point, I'm not too sure. It's about 7 in the morning as I'm writing this. Last night was truly horrible. You should have seen Evelyn. My porch is covered with dark blood and small bits of gore. I still haven't mustered up the courage to clean it up. Let me explain myself. So I woke up around 2 in the morning, and Evelyn was knocking on my door. She was saying something, but the way she was talking was slurred, almost as if she was drunk. The knocks wouldn't stop. Soft, but steady thumps echoed through my dark house. I got up after a moment of steeling myself to what I would expect to be another traumatizing experience. I went and answered the door to see Evelyn, a horrid mess of what you would once call a human being. She mutilated herself to the point of absurdity. How was she still walking, knocking? I barely can recall her. It was too horrible to remember completely. All I remember is her stomach being hollow. It was a windy night, and the wind rang through her abdomen. Her eyes were gouged out, yet I knew she could see me. A triangle with an arrow on each side with a sideways eye in the center was carved into her forehead, and her mouth, or the remnants of a mouth, oh God, it was awful. Her cheeks were cut away, exposing her teeth completely, and in a way she was still smiling. There was more, I know there was, but I can't remember it, and to be honest, I don't really want to remember. I closed the door almost immediately after seeing her as she was. She spoke to me through the door. The words gargled out of her half face.
Hey there, buddy. Can I come in?
No, you can't come in.
Stammered out. I'm freaking out. Is this her love? Was she going to turn me into something from Clive Barker's darkest dream?
Oh, come on, buddy. I just want to share my progress through the 12 steps.
You can tell me through the door.
There was silence for a bit, well, almost silence. There was a constant light drizzle as she stood there. It wasn't raining.
If you insist. I've moved through steps 6 and 7. I'm so close to becoming what God wants me to be.
Why are you telling me this? Why don't you talk to Mark about this?
I shouted through the door with my head pressed against it. My rage broke through my fear. I shouldn't be afraid in my own home. Her eye sockets looked through the peephole as she spoke with a disgustingly sweet voice.
Because he's a believer in God, buddy. But you need convincing. And so that's why I'm taking you with me down this road.
But I do believe in God. I'm a Catholic.
She giggled, and I knew if she could, she would be sporting that comparatively tame smile.
Not that God, silly. That God was nothing but false hope. He turned his back on his followers a long time ago. His love was fleeting, but my love is eternal.
Her voice deepened near the end, almost as if she was being puppeteered by some unseen hand.
He was a frail and weak thing. He created you to love him entirely. I don't demand your love, instead I shower you with mine.
Still don't know how to deal with that. Is what she's saying true? Has God abandoned us, leaving us to the whims of whatever she's been possessed by? Her voice went from deep to her normal tone as smoothly as it came on.
I have to go then, buddy. Since you're not ready to be loved, then I'll just move on to step 8.
What's step 8?
She turns her back to my door. At this point, I'm barely mustering up the courage to look.
What's step 8?
Make a list of all I wronged.
That's right, I remembered the steps. Next would be to make amends. But there was a catch-22 to step 9.
Yeah, but after you have to make amends with them, but in a way that won't injure them.
She continues to walk down the steps. That drizzle is still present, along with small, wet thuds.
You're silly. I'm not going to injure them. I would be loving them.
I finally opened the door again to yell some half-hearted rebuttal, probably about how she shouldn't be choosing other people's fates. But she was gone. That trail of blood stopped abruptly. I looked at my door from the outside, and I noticed that the symbol on her forehead was carved into my door. I didn't see her with any weapons. Though, if I'm remembering right, her hands did glint in a strange way in the moonlight, and they seemed to be sharpened. I got to go. That mess isn't going to get cleaned. And the more I wait, the harder it will be. At least it's Halloween. I just saw a report on the news. A brutal massacre took place at a local clinic. They won't give many details, but none survived. Leaked photos from the massacre made their way online. There was a message written in blood. Love is pain. I'm going to be sick. I'm not sure how much longer I can take this. Part 4. Before I tell you about earlier tonight, I have to share something. I've never been one to get scared the way I have been portraying myself. I've never had a bully growing up. What I'm trying to say is I'm not weak physically or mentally. But today was so horribly fucked up that I'm not sure if I'll ever be the same person. I guess intense and existential fear can do that to someone. So where do I begin? I guess you can say my morning was actually really quiet, but I was so stressed out that I stood on my toes those silent hours, just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Once it hit 6 at night, I went to A. By 7:30 I rolled in. I was technically early, but I haven't seen anyone lingering around the parking lot like usual. My animal instincts were telling me something wasn't right. But at the same time, I had my logic telling me that there's no way that she would actually come here, right? Though that was more naive hope than logic fueling my brain, I just wanted to get A over with. Regardless, I walked in. I saw the usuals. I said my round of haze and how I use, but I wasn't getting the response I was hoping for. Everyone had their back to me and was talking among themselves. Some of them were laughing. I wish I had the energy to laugh at something. Mark was sitting in his usual spot. He had sunglasses on.
Isn't it a bit late for sunglasses?
Yeah, it is, but I had an accident, and it's just easier if I wear them for now.
Hey, no judgment. I hope you get better.
Oh, I will be, thanks, Mike.
Even though that's totally in character for him to say that I still felt slightly sick. It was the inflection in his voice. Something about it seemed extremely familiar. It felt like Evelyn. Though I ignored that because it could have just been me. I'm legitimately traumatized from this walking nightmare circus of horror and despair.
All right, everyone, it's time to come together. Group is about to start.
I took a deep breath and calmed myself. There was always the possibility of her coming, but besides me, I don't feel like she loves everyone else in this room more than her patients, which, based on the news, she's been committing a string of horrible family-wide murder sprees. Though unofficial reports from first responders talked about the survivors, they were all hysterical in their pain. They kept exclaiming their love to God. The doctors and paramedics are baffled to see them so alive for how much blood and flesh were missing. The cops who are sharing their stories on the community blog said that when they came to another one of the crime scenes, they felt this presence in the air. And in the heart of it would be a single survivor, usually a child. But they are so horribly mangled that the cops swore off meat until the day they die. One cop kept talking about reporting to a house that was in his neighborhood. He personally knew the family and often helped their kid with his soccer. When people were asking for a description of the child, all the cop could say was, "Open ribcage." As the group came together, I noticed they were all wearing some kind of headgear, and some had their hair in their eyes. I felt anxious, and in the back of my head I told myself, The door is right behind you. You can just say goodbye to all of this and go to another city once a week for AAA. I wish I just listened to myself. Now that I think about it, it wouldn't have mattered anyway.
Before we start, though, I feel like it's appropriate if we pray to God.
We never prayed before a meeting.
You're right, but now is the dawn of something new, something truly pure.
He took off his glasses and his eyes were not only stripped out, but all the bones with it. You could see into his carved-out brain cavity. He breaks the glasses and jabs each one of the arms of the glasses into his neck, over and over, letting a fountain of blood pour. I tried to get up, but someone was holding me down. It was Todd, another one of the usuals, but he unzipped his sweater to show his once big belly was now a disgusting bloom of fat and flesh. He removed his mask to show the same modification like Evelyn's, but his seemed a lot more rough. It looked like he tore it off rather than cutting it.
Why are you doing this? What's wrong with you people?
Us. You think something is wrong with us?
Said Mark through gargles of blood. His skin was becoming more and more pale, but his energy only seemed to rise as he got up. He tore off his buttoned shirt to show off what he called the mark of devotion and love. His heart was intact, and so was his lungs, but the whole front of him was missing besides the ribs, which were being used as racks for his intestines to be squeezed through and stretched to a point where I'm sure if you hit it the right way, ghastly music would be made.
You don't think this was some flight of fancy of a sick woman, did you? This was all designed to come to fruition.
More people started showing their own love-racked bodies. I closed my eyes to spare myself while I tried to get more information out of him, if not for anyone else, then for me.
What do you mean designed? Why did it take you so long? Weren't you founded in the 30s?
We waited for so long hoping that the Messiah would come to us, for we cannot find the Messiah ourselves. They have to give consent to become the true mortal embodiment of our God. And finally we have one. For so long people were too focused on the Abrahamic God and closed off their hearts to anything other than the vacant God of false hope. But now with the new age, more people are opening their minds to new possibilities, and finally we were able to find Evelyn.
Consent. That's bullshit. The only reason why she started AA was because of her horrible migraines that could only be cured by alcohol.
Mark sighed. His lacerated trachea whistled softly.
Those migraines were a mark of affection, Mike. Our God chose her, but...
He emphasized the but, as if this word would shut down my previous statement.
She decided to let him in. It's a part of the 12 steps. All of this was designed to indoctrinate her and raise her up. If she truly did not want this fate, then our God would have passed over her before too long.
I couldn't say anything. He was right. I was there the whole time bearing witness. She did want it, or was it all because of this horrible dark God? I can't really tell anymore. It's all kind of blurring together, and I'm not really sure what's real. I'm not even sure I will ever really figure out what is real again.
Now, if you don't have any more questions, let me bring in our Lord in the flesh to pray over this blessed reunion.
Evelyn drifted down from above. Her back skin was flayed, and it looked to be like she stitched someone else's skin to her own to create a cape. She wore a crown of children's skulls still covered with fresh blood and strips of gore. Everyone around me bows, my captor does the same, and I shoot upwards.
Where are you going, buddy? I wanted to share with you that I am almost done with my journey. I prayed for God to guide me through, and I have reached enlightenment. The God of flesh and bone has been made anew, the Holy Covenant was made real. And now I walk where God walks.
I tried to stay lucid, though the aura radiating from her forced my mind to waver. I kept getting flashes of the monochromatic mountain, the great beast that sat atop the peak, with the skull of some forgotten behemoth of old and a shroud of darkness enveloping its figure. From below, that monstrosity rivers of blood seeped down the mountain and filled the basins near the base. From that rancid pool of blood rose creatures of mythic nightmares. I snapped back to reality and I was almost completely embraced by Evelyn. I felt her running her sharpened fingertip down my shoulder, cutting it deeply. I pulled back from it.
Still not ready to be loved?
I screamed a bestial scream as I ran out. I kept running and running. I ran for what felt like days. I ran until the blood loss made me nearly faint. I decided that I'd rather spend 100 days in the county jail. At least then Evelyn won't find me so easily. As I'm transcribing this, for a buddy of mine to post this last part, I still can feel her in the back of my mind. I just caught a glimpse of the guards' TV. The news is on, and it looks like a growing riot in our town. They preach pain is love, and more people are joining it every day, each mutilating themselves to horrific proportions. God help us all.